You know, most of my recent videos have been talking about bad things, and I think it's time to talk about something that is actually good. Get this negativity out of here. From now on, I'm only gonna talk about good things. If you couldn't tell from my previous videos, I really like co-op shooters, and I believe the key to having great co-op shooters is good enemy design. If the things you fight aren't fun to fight, then why bother? I think there are three main factors that go into what makes an enemy roster fun, and they are variety, presence, and counterplay. To better understand what I mean, let's look at the grandfather of all co-op portal shooters, Left 4 Dead.
Pay attention, there's a hunter around.
The enemies in Left 4 Dead mostly consist of common infected, and if the game was just commons, it would be boring. The special infected are what make the game what it is, and are what encourages you to work together as a team, cooperating. Most of them will punish you from staying too far away from your team. The spitter and boomer cannot pin you, but they can both be threatening. The spitter punishes you for staying in one spot, while the boomer punishes you for not checking your surroundings. The witch can force you to take an alternate path forward, or sometimes can force the team to work together to take it out before it kills you, as sometimes it can block the only path forward. And the tank, oh boy, the tank. The tank requires the entire team's attention, as a tank showing up at a bad time can cause an entire team wipe. Especially on maps where it can throw cars and other objects at you, the tank can easily destroy an uncoordinated team. But with good teamwork and cooperation, the tank can easily be dispatched. Not only do the specials of Left 4 Dead come in great variety and have an intimidating presence, but have fantastically designed counterplay. Every special has unique audio cues that let you know when they are nearby, and that is not including the voice line your survivor will make, or even the actual voice lines of the special infected themselves. If you hear this, you know there's a hunter nearby. If you hear this, you know there's a smoker nearby. The smoker itself, being a ranged enemy, also has a lot of well-designed counterplay. When it grabs someone, you can free them by shoving them, killing the smoker, or shooting the tongue. If you are the one being targeted and you have a sharp melee and quick reflexes, you can cut the tongue before it fully incapacitates you. Hunters and jockeys can be shoved out of the air before they hit you. Boomers can be shoved to give you time to make distance before you kill them to avoid getting puked on. Chargers and spitters can be avoided with good map knowledge, and tanks can be put down fast with fire damage and good focus fire. A skilled player can crown a witch and kill them instantly. The enemies of Left 4 Dead have great variety in both gameplay and visual design, and have an impactful presence on the game, and have very well designed counterplay. Now that you have a better understanding of what my criteria means, let's look at 3 games that I think are the peak of co-op shooter gameplay, and they achieve said peak status because of their amazing enemies.
Yeah, this game's really a no-brainer.
When I first started playing Darktide, I thought it was pretty cool. The melee system was fun, and there was a lot of guns and some fun builds to do. Then, when I got a maxed out character and started doing endgame content, I realized, wait, this game is actually peak. Darktide is a true Left 4 Dead successor for the modern age of gaming. You take the great core gameplay design principles of Left 4 Dead, and then throw in some different classes with a large variety of build options, and then you have yourself a great game. This game gets more and more fun the higher the difficulty you're playing on, and that is because of the amazing enemy design in this game. Darktide is a perfect example of my 3 pillars of great enemy design. There is plenty of variety, they have an intimidating presence, as well as great counterplay. On high difficulties, yes, enemies will have more health and do more damage, but the real difficulty comes from the increase of the amount of enemies you face, not how strong the individual enemies are. The high difficulties have swarms and swarms of fodder enemies, but also tons of elite and specialist enemies as well. The fact the game actually splits the special enemies into elites and specialists should be a good indication of how many different enemy types there are. Elites are basically stronger versions of normal enemies, like the gunners and shotgunners being stronger versions of the basic ranged enemies, and maulers and ragers being stronger versions of basic melee enemies. That being said, they do have their own unique abilities, like the Rager being more resistant to staggers, and Maulers with their devastating overhead slam attack. Specialists are mostly what you would think of for a special enemy in a game like this, and they have a lot of similarities to Left 4 Dead special units. The Flamers and Bombers serve a very similar purpose to Spitters, Hounds are like Hunters, Mutants are like Chargers. However, unlike Left 4 Dead, there is more than one boss enemy. Monstrosities, as the game calls them, are Darktide's boss units, and there are 4 in total, excluding the Demon Host, which the Demon Host is basically like Left 4 Dead's Witch. Darktide has variety down, not only in the fact that there are tons of special enemies, but there are also variants for a lot of them. Dreg Ragers are different to Scab Ragers, as they have different health types, which means certain weapons and builds are more or less effective. Some missions might have special modifiers that make more of a certain enemy type spawn, such as Hunting Grounds. Hunting Grounds and Mutant Waves will occasionally spawn hordes of Hounds and Mutants respectively, except for the ones that spawn from these massive waves have drastically less health. One grenade can fill the entire kill feed with Hounds, and it is very funny. One of my favorite Auric modifiers removes all ammo pickups and has basically only melee scab special enemies, and you're fighting hordes and hordes of Maulers and Crushers. There are a ton of modifiers that focus on certain enemy types, and it adds a ton of replay value. The variety is great, and so is the intimidation factor. Images like these strike fear into my heart every time I see them, because the specials in this game are actually threatening, especially when they spawn in big groups. Turning a corner to see 3 Maulers and 2 Crushers is the fastest way to activate your fight or flight response, but unfortunately for these heretics, I can't fly. What truly makes the enemies of Darktide fun to fight is the fantastically designed counterplay. Hearing voice lines from the specials instantly grabs your attention the same way the music stings in Left 4 Dead do. Every single special can be countered in some way, even if it is just shoot them or just dodge them. For most enemies, it is just dodge, idiot. You can even dodge gunshots, and the visual and audio cues are so well designed that you can consistently dodge enemies even when you're not even looking at the enemies that are shooting at you. Ranged enemies can be suppressed by shooting near them, giving you some breathing room to line up a good shot. Certain gear and abilities also can help deal with ranged enemies, such as the Ogryn's Shield and the Veteran's Smoke Grenades, which, unironically, are actually amazing at high-level Havoc missions. PSA to all the Krieg veterans I see in Havoc that keep dying, use smoke grenades, and use skills that will refill your grenades. You will make your team basically immune to ranged enemies if you stick together, which you should be doing anyways. It's not just the gun enemies that are dangerous, melee enemies are dangerous as well. Crushers and Maulers can one-shot you on the highest difficulties with their overhead slams, but these attacks are very slow and telegraphed, so just dodge, 5-head. Hounds can be shoved off of you during their leap. Flamers can explode into fire if you destroy their tanks, which will damage nearby enemies, and Poxbursters can be shoved back to explode all nearby enemies while keeping yourself safe. Aim for weak points, stick with your team, and the scariest hordes can be overcome. Very few games give the same satisfaction as clutching a level 30 plus Havoc mission, but I'm about to talk about some other games that might.
I'm your brother? We're supposed to look out for each other? Why were you working against me, Chuck?
You're not a real
Payday.
I'm what?
You're not a real
Payday.
University of
Golden Shark.
For Christ's sake, an online course? What a joke. I worked my ass off to get where I am. And you take these shortcuts and you think suddenly you're my peer? You do what I do because you're funny and you can make people laugh? I committed my life to this.
This is not the first time I've talked about Resmod, and it is definitely not going to be the last. I have made an entire video talking about this mod, so if you want to hear more about some of the specifics, then the link for it is in the description. Restoration Mod, or Resmod, is a complete gameplay overhaul mod for Payday 2, and in my opinion, it is an objectively better experience. This could just come from the fact that I have spent thousands of hours in Payday 2 and have already done everything in the vanilla game, but Resmod has way more enjoyable gameplay. The balance is a lot better, there's a good amount of new content, but mostly, Resmod is more fun than vanilla because of the enemies. Again, this is something I have specifically talked about previously multiple times, but the enemies in Resmod are just so much better than in vanilla. Not only in gameplay, but also appearance. There are so many new unique models made for this mod, and each individual enemy looks way more distinct compared to vanilla. Normally, each normal SWAT has basically the same model except with a different gun. In Resmod, not only does each basic enemy have their own different model depending on what gun they have, but they also look drastically different than each other based on the difficulty and faction. Here's what some enemies look like in vanilla, and just look at how much better they look in Resmod. I can't emphasize how good the new models for the enemies are, both in terms of visuals and gameplay clarity. Being able to recognize what enemy unit is which just by looking at their helmet is great for clear gameplay. But obviously, more important than their upgraded visuals is their upgraded gameplay. Specials in Payday have been a key part of the gameplay loop, and each one punishes you in a different way. The taser punishes you for running out into the open, the cloaker punishes you for straying too far away from your team, the shield punishes you for backing yourself into a corner, the medic punishes you for poor target acquisition, the sniper punishes you for not being careful, and the dozer punishes poor team coordination. Theoretically, this is perfect. However, in vanilla Payday 2, the specials are not threatening at all. A combination of bad AI and bad balance makes specials rarely ever a threat. So many things counter specials, and even if they get to use their ability or have a presence on the battlefield, most of the time it doesn't even do anything. If a medic heals something, just shoot them again. If a taser tases you, just shoot the taser. Shields have so many counters, and dozers are just not scary anymore. Resmod fixes both issues as best as a mod can. It's still the diesel engine, there's only so much a mod can do to fix the AI. Although the AI does tend to act smarter, and having actual police squads group up and push as a combined force. Cops will also tend to react faster instead of just sitting there and doing nothing. In Resmod, most of the specials from vanilla act mostly the same except for a few changes that make them more threatening. Tasers no longer give you a free reload, and the tasing effect is actually hard to control, so being tased is no longer a minor inconvenience that gives you a free reload and is usually a net positive. Being tased is something you should actually try to avoid now. Medics can no longer heal if they're in the middle of any animation, like being staggered or in the middle of a roll. It is really dumb in vanilla when a medic is in the middle of a knockdown, they will instantly stand up and heal if someone near them dies. Also in Resmod, the medic's heal has a longer cooldown depending on how strong the healed enemy was. Cloakers now don't make their ambient noise, so are harder to find with just audio, but instead will have their night vision goggles permanently on, so it's easier to spot them visually. Also, the charge now is the only move that will straight up down you, as their leaps will cuff you instead. The kicks will no longer set your health to the revived health amount, instead they will do a set damage. Snipers had a rework that makes them a lot more fair. Now instead of instantly quickscoping you, they will take time to charge up their shot. To compensate for this, they do a lot more damage. Snipers also now have Sniper Glint to help locate them. Now, if these special changes just stopped at this, where they were reworked to be a bit better, I would not be making this video. The real thing that makes this mod so fun are the new specials that are added from the mod. Every single vanilla special has a Titan version, which acts as a stronger version with more health and new abilities. The Titan shield has a longer, stronger shield that resists most armor penetration, explosive damage, and has the flashbang ability from vanilla's martial shields. Just like the martial shields, you can break the lights during a blind charge up to stun the shield and nearby units, but too much damage can break the shield, and the shield will turn into a powerful close range unit with a different gun. Titan tasers come equipped with special bullets in their shotguns that will slow you. The Titan sniper is a good version of vanilla's martial marksman, a more closer range sniper unit that has a DMR with tracer rounds, and does not miss their first shot, unlike vanilla's pathetic excuse for an alternate sniper. Titan medics will overheal nearby units, but are weak to melee. Titan cloakers have active camo, making them very hard to see, but have the ambient noise of vanilla cloakers, letting you hear them even if you can't see them. Titan dozers come equipped with a sniper rifle and adhere to Resmod's sniper rework, where they have to have line of sight on you for a bit before being able to dome you. Not only do the specials have a Titan version, but there is also Titan SWAT, who come equipped with either an LMG that has knockback or an auto shotgun that has a minor stunning effect. Titan SWAT cannot be dominated, same as any other special. Resmod also introduces entirely new special units such as the Grenadier. Unlike Payday 3's Nader, the Resmod Grenadier will actually use their gas ability. On higher difficulties, instead of tear gas, they use nerve gas, which will drain your stamina in addition to dealing damage. Hostage rescue units also make a return, something that was removed from vanilla Payday for no reason, and they come with a new unit, the Assault Support Unit, which is basically the Titan hostage rescue unit, who will buff all nearby cops' damage, and you can see this buff by the yellow lasers on cops' guns. Lastly is the Veteran, who dual wields pistols and can perform many different dodges to avoid gunfire. Now, I haven't talked about Dozers, and that is because Dozers have received the largest rework out of all specials. Dozers feel actually different from each other now. The Green Dozer does act very similar to Vanilla, being a decent threat with a powerful shotgun. And the Black Dozer is now actually unique. Instead of just being the same as the Green Dozer but with a different gun, the Black Dozer is now more of a rushdown unit, charging you with better mobility, but they have worse health and can be stunned by explosives. Skull Dozers have more health and are slower than traditional Green Dozers, and their LMG has knockback, which can easily tear your health to shreds if you're caught in a bad position. The Minigun Dozer has been replaced with the Elite Bulldozer, who comes equipped with a devastating Benelli shotgun and has better armor than traditional bulldozers. However, the real star of the show, in my opinion, is the Captain rework. In Vanilla Payday 2, Captain Winters is a joke. He shows up and then dies to a single grenade or a single sniper bullet and then runs away. In Resmod, Winters returns and is actually a threat, but he is not alone. There are 3 other captains that can show up, excluding secret captains like the Halloween Headless Dozer captain. Winters himself has had a complete rework, so instead of sitting in the back, he will now rush you down with a squad of phalanx shields. Winters and his squad of shields act as even stronger versions of Titan shields, with even Winters' own shield being breakable. Additionally, Winters also acts as an LPF, the Titan medic, and will overheal all nearby units, but just like the LPF, he is weak to melee. Winters is a great example of how Resmod adheres to the 3 pillars of enemy design. There is more than one captain, given great variety. The captains have an intimidating presence, but also have very well-designed counterplay. The next captain is Captain Summers, who is a squad of ex-heisters that act as 4 super enhanced specials. Doc will heal the rest of his team, so he is the priority target. Major Molly acts similarly to Titan snipers, wielding a powerful 500 Magnum, which actually is a new weapon that you can get in the mod. She can do devastating damage from basically any distance, but she has a long reload time. Electra acts as a super Titan taser, wielding an assault rifle instead of a shotgun, making it more likely she will stun you with her special stunning rounds. Finally is Captain Summers himself, who acts similarly to bulldozers, but instead of wielding a shotgun or an LMG, he wields a flamethrower and throws Molotovs everywhere. You need to stay mobile to avoid being rushed down by a squad of constantly healing super specials, and you need to focus down Summer's squad before him as they all give him damage reduction while he's alive. Following the theme of super specials is Captain Spring, who is the super bulldozer. Spawning with 2 elite Bravo bulldozers, he may be slow, but Spring packs the biggest punch. He ate all the minigun dozers from Vanilla and combined their power into one being. His minigun and frag grenades will rip you to pieces, so you should wait for him to reload before engaging him. Lastly, and my favorite, is Captain Autumn, who is a super cloaker. Fighting Captain Autumn is the closest I've ever felt to fighting Batman. He spawns with a squad of Titan cloakers and has the same active camo they do. He will disable your deployables, and he will throw tons of tear gas and flashbangs, and will taunt you by laughing constantly. He is hard to pin down, and even if you do find him, you are unlikely to win the 1v1 as he can easily cuff you. Autumn requires the entire team to focus to find him, as he can easily dismantle an uncoordinated team single-handedly. It may sound bullshit, but let me tell you, my first few times fighting Captain Autumn was the most fun I ever had in Payday. He is such a disruptive force. Simply by existing and causing panic, he can let the rest of the normal cops come in and clean up a disorganized crew.
You are?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I am still not done talking about new enemies added in this mod. The 1 down modifier has been replaced with the pro job modifier, which makes the heist harder, but will actually give you a reward instead of the 1 down modifier, which does actually nothing. Pro jobs will disable basic dead drops like doctor bags and ammo bags, have no heist restarts, have less ammo pickups, a shorter damage grace period, friendly fire is enabled, and most heists will have a special point of no return timer at the end of the heist. During this final charge, no, not that one, we're not talking about Payday 3 here, this one's actually good. During this final countdown, special Bravo units will come in to assist and are different depending on the faction. They come with stronger guns, armor, improved health, and the ability to throw frag grenades. Aiding the police during the finale of a heist is the United States National Guard. Murky Water will call in the Omnia PMC. Even Aiken's Russian Reaper mercenaries and the Mexican Federales all have their own special armies of Bravo units that all come with unique models and voice lines. Your reward for successfully facing down the Bravo units and completing a pro job is 25% more money and XP. Given this is like the third time in a video I have talked about the enemy design of Resmod, it should not be surprising that I believe the enemy design of Resmod is one of the best in gaming, and it follows the 3 pillars of enemy design fantastically. There is a ton of enemy variety, both in visuals and gameplay. The enemies are actually threatening, unlike in vanilla, but also have really good counterplay. Resmod is such a good mod, it has so much new content, I'm surprised I have never seen any of the big payday YouTubers talk about it. I think it is an objectively better experience, but that could just be my preference for older Payday, as Resmod restores the feeling of classic Payday 2. There is so much I haven't talked about, like the secret enemies like the Gay Jacket Man and Big Dave, and other things like the rework to Holdout and Crime Spree, the new weapon and heists, the rework skill system, improved UI, and massively improved balance. If you like Payday, I think this mod deserves a chance. And who knows, you might be like me and get converted into a Resmod simp and never play vanilla ever again. By the way, Resmod devs, if you're watching this, thank you for making such an amazing mod. I love this mod to death and will always be a shill for you. That being said, there is one game that I think has better enemy design than Resmod. Helldivers 2 is the best co-op game to have come out in a very long time, and there are so many good reasons why. The unique gameplay, the unique live service storytelling, the variety of factions, the hilarious lore, the insane attention to detail, but for me, it's the enemies. The enemies of Helldivers are, in my opinion, the best designed enemies in any co-op game I have played. Now, I should say that because of the nature of Helldivers, where everything is constantly changing, it hasn't always been the best balanced game, but I think that developers have learned from the community and have focused on having as many different playstyles be as viable as possible. I believe that in its current state, the enemies of Helldivers are basically perfectly designed. There are still some balancing tweaks here and there that should be ironed out, but the core enemy design is so good that it more than makes up for the occasional balancing problem. First of all, the visual design is amazing. It might seem silly that the tiny scavenger and the gigantic bile titan are from the same species, but if we look at the entire family of terminids, we can see how they evolved and how a lot of the different enemy types are basically just the same basic animal, just at a different evolutionary or age level. If we take a look at the basic scavenger, we can see how the different terminids evolved from it. The higher level terminids do just look like older versions of this same bug. They all retained 4 legs with 2 front appendages, growing an abdomen on the back and having more armor at the front. Going back to the scavenger, one of the evolutions is that of wings, and the pouncer is basically just a scavenger with wings. And as the pouncers grow up, they become hunters, which will eventually grow up into stalkers. Bile spitters are scavengers that evolve the bile trait, and they grow up into bile warriors, bile spitters, spore chargers, and eventually become the bile titans. Looking at the automatons, there are a few core robot chassis that get modified with different parts. The basic troopers and commissars are the same basic frame, and berserkers and devastators are also on another larger frame, each with multiple versions. Tanks come in many forms with the same basic frame with a different gun, and hulks themselves can use many different guns. Gunships and dropships are very similar as well. As for the Illuminate, it's hard to say as there's only a few enemy types right now, but there are at least 4 other enemy types leaked in the files. So far, it isn't too much of a stretch to say that the vote list could be evolving into Overseers. Overall, the enemies have amazing visual designs that easily communicate what they are and what is dangerous about them. And the best part about the enemies of Helldivers is the ability to take advantage of this. Limb damage is peak. It's why Resident Evil 4 is so good. Helldivers has one of the best limb damage systems I've played in any games. Focusing something other than the head is a good way to deal with some of the dangerous enemies, and I love the fact that depending on the weapon, it is better to shoot the charger in the legs instead of the head. Different weapons specializing in different things is really cool, and then depending on what you are bringing, the act of shooting the enemy is different. To illustrate what I mean, let's look at the Hulk and how you would go about fighting it depending on what weapons you have. The Hulk is probably the best example of how, depending on what weapons you have, you fight one enemy in a variety of different ways. If you have no big support weapons and only just standard issue light armor penetration weapons, the first place that you want to shoot on the Hulk is obviously the big weak point on the back. This is the main weak point, that is the intended weak point that every single weapon can take advantage of. However, if you have something stronger, say a rocket launcher of some sorts, you can just one-shot the Hulk because that's what it's for. But the downside of running a big recoilless rifle, or something similar to it, is the fact that you basically don't have a support weapon for dealing with the weaker units. So there's a trade-off for that. You can easily kill the heavy units, but you're worse at killing the medium to small units. Say you're using a support weapon that is good at killing those medium to small units, like the autocannon. You can damage the Hulk from the front, but it's not great at it. One of the best ways to kill the Hulk with the autocannon is to aim for the legs. If you destroy both of the legs, it will instantly kill the Hulk. And if you're having a hard time destroying the legs because it's shooting at you, then you can just destroy its guns. And then if you destroy its guns, it's basically just a melee unit. And then if it doesn't have any of its guns and it has to melee you and you get rid of one of its legs, it's super slow, so it's basically dead. Precision-based support weapons will want to aim for the eye, things like the railgun, the AMR, and the laser cannon. It is hard to hit sometimes because of everything that's going on, but it can kill a Hulk really easily. And even the Senator can kill a Hulk from the front if you shoot them in the face. This idea of focusing a certain limb to weaken an enemy goes for more than just the Hulk. It applies to almost every enemy. Factory Striders can have their guns destroyed. You can destroy the Bile Sacs on Bile Titans to disable their spit attacks. The weapons on Devastators can be destroyed to make them way less scary. Harvesters can have their shield generators destroyed, making them way easier to kill. Many enemies have weak points that are not simply just their head. If your weapon can penetrate the armor, a charger's real weak point are their front legs. Factory Striders can be shot in the face or in the belly. Harvesters' weak points are their leg joints, not their big glowing eye. And even on some enemies, the head isn't always an instant kill. Warriors and Brood Commanders will still live for a little bit even if their head is destroyed. Not only is limb damage important, but certain parts of certain enemies have different levels of armor. Look at the Hive Guard. Its front armor cannot be pierced by light armor penetration weapons, but can be pierced by medium armor penetration weapons. If you don't have any higher armor pen, then you can try to move behind it or try to shoot between the gaps in the armor. Devastators also have medium armor, but not in the chest or the head. Chargers have heavy armor, making them immune to most small arms fire, but not all. There are so many cool tips and tricks for dealing with enemies like this, and I love how a lot of your skill in this game comes from knowledge, not gear. I love crafting loadouts that have an answer to everything, and one of my favorite loadouts for bugs is this: Eruptor, Verdict, Thermites, Peak Physique, Machine Gun, and Supply Pack. This loadout uses the machine gun as the main primary weapon, using the supply pack to resupply ammo whenever needed. Thermite grenades are used for taking out Bile Titans and Chargers, as the machine gun is great at killing everything other than the heaviest of units. The Verdict is a good secondary to swap to when the machine gun runs out of ammo, as it can one-shot most of the smaller bugs, and the medium pen makes it really good for killing Hive Guards and Brood Commanders. The Eruptor exists mostly to destroy bug holes, but is also good at chaff clear. This loadout is overall very versatile, and the last two stratagems I bring are usually one that is good at trash clear, like the gas or airburst strikes, and one that is good at killing large targets like anti-tank emplacement, precision strike, or 500 kilogram. I think it is really fun to create loadouts that have the ability to take on any enemy. Helldivers is one of the best examples of what makes a good enemy design. Cool visuals that clearly show the strengths and weaknesses of an enemy, as well as giving a good idea of the lore. The enemies have an intimidating presence without feeling like the odds are impossible because there is well-designed counterplay. Limb damage to disable special abilities will always be satisfying. If your weapon can't outright kill the enemy, disabling them to give yourself some breathing room makes the eventual kill even more satisfying. So those were 3 of my favorite games, and I hope you understand why I find these games so fun. PvE games like this are only as fun as the enemies, and these games excel at having great enemies. So many co-op PvE games have pathetic, brainless enemies that are nowhere close to being threatening. The enemies in Payday 3 might seem intimidating, but they never actually use their abilities. In a game where everyone one-shots every enemy with infinite ammo and heals on kill, the only thing that can be a threat are the specials, but they just never use their abilities. This is a good video that talks about the bad enemies of Payday 3, and while I don't agree with everything, it shows that how Payday 3 on the surface looks like a good game with AI that appears to function better than Payday 2 AI that will actually group up with shields and push, and they look cool, but the reaction speed is awful and the balancing is horrible, and the game is so easy that enemies cannot be a threat to players when the players have infinite ammo and heal on kill. If you couldn't tell, my opinion on ammo fun has changed, and I think it should be nerfed, because why would you not use the skill that gives you infinite ammo? If you want a good Payday game, just go play Resmod. Anyways, just play good games instead of bad games. Good thing, better than bad thing. Only play good games.
No Dead by Daylight! You will fail the challenge!
I won't turn off the game, I promise.
Play Warframe instead! Dead by Daylight sucks!